get from you for things. I know it's like this amazing, beautiful video, but the thumbnail's always like, she looks like, she's in the middle of...
Like having a seizure.
Exactly. Good evening, welcome to Tripping on Legends. My name is Chris Balzano. That's the part where you introduce yourself.
And I'm Nikki Neo.
And you know what, we really, we went all out for Halloween. We decided to do something a little bit different. So we are on location right now in not only a haunted location, not only a haunted place, not only a haunted place in the Ocala, but also something that touches upon probably, I would say, the most popular theme in the ghost world, and that would be haunted objects. You wouldn't be able to tell it from the sales of my book, Haunted Objects, but this is, you talk about, here's this haunted location, here's that haunted location, and then you go Robert, and everyone's ears perk up, right? And everyone wants that stuff. So we are here at the Haunted Antique Shop with...
I'm Corrine Kenner.
And?
I'm Dan Horon.
Okay, and we're going to be talking, of course, anyone who wants to chime in, we can kind of see the Facebook because we have this entire panel of intelligent people straight in the actual haunted location. It's a little bit different. Our setup is going to be a little bit different tonight. It's not going to be me rambling on about the symbolism of this. I'm still going to do that. But we can see kind of the Facebook comments. We can kind of respond, I think. But we definitely can't respond to the Instagram because it is about 30 miles away from us. And we are going to spend a ton of time, however much time these guys are going to let me stay in here and hang out, talking about haunted objects. But in the spirit of spontaneity, what the hell was she just talking about? That sound now I know.
Don't go to tarot physics.
No. So
people can look at tarot.
Forget about her for a second. Forget put your hat down. I want to know about this.
Has a lot of.
Wait, you gotta slow down when you say that. Tarottphysics.com. That's not run by you, is it?
Tarot of Physics.
Tarottofphysics.com. Is that run by you?
Well, it's run by me.
It's run. Okay. I have a feeling these two are going to be actually
it needs
like
updating. It's something that I did about a decade ago, and then it's waiting for me to go to the next level.
Okay.
And I think that time is getting close.
Yeah.
But
you guys are kind of, you have your arms right. Maybe I should put my arm around it. We're going to get into haunted objects. We're going to have plenty to say on the matter. What is the physics of tarot? Because even though this is not like there are no rules on the show. It's not necessarily something that we've covered on the show, which I think we should cover tarot because so many people are into it and so many people are consumed with it, and it is, I think, to the person looking from the outside, that sorry if I feel like I'm doing this and I'm turning my back on you. You know I'm not turning my back on you. Right? I think people see it as an extension of a Ouija board. Right? When it's not, but it kind of is. But what is the physics of tarot?
Well, I'll just introduce it by saying the tarot of physics is what happens when a software developer or engineering nerd designs a tarot deck.
Okay.
But like a nerd, I interpreted your question to just be asking what is the physics behind how the tarot.
Yeah, like not only what is the website, but what is the physics of it.
Yeah.
Talk about your background just a little bit so people can kind of get a handle on.
I'm a software developer. Actually, specializing in the fire alarm industry, and have a software that is used by a lot of big companies in the world. But my tarot of physics is something I created after going to conferences with Corrine for about a decade, and I was in a workshop with somebody, and I was showing them how the electrical circuit matches the four aspects of tarot, which are
totally
earth, air, fire, and water.
Explain how the computers match that. Explain that.
Okay.
Just so you know, you might think it's not interesting because you live with it, but I can tell you. I can tell you right now. I'm already like, talk about that for a second. I know nothing about that, and I know people who are into tarot who are probably going to have the same kind of bafflement. And by the way, you can feel at any time pull out a book that's related to what we're talking about, because you have how many books on tarot?
Oh, like 15?
She has 15 books on tarot. So this is, you know, she's. Would you
Corrine
consider yourself
Kenner,
an
that-
author first or a proprietor first?
So,
Author first.
Author first.
Author
Okay.
first. That's what I really am.
yeah.
And we already have links that are up right now. People who are listening, you can actually go and check out the link, as well as we're going to put it in the show notes when we get there. So tell me about this lining up with computers.
Okay, so an electrical circuit is something that has four general components that lined up precisely with the aspects of the earth, air, fire, and water that is the basis of tarot.
Okay.
And
What are the
in
four
order-
components of a circuit then?
Okay, so one of the, and also it's in, all right, I'll just go to a circuit. You
Okay.
have an energy source.
Yeah.
So picture an old time picture of a battery with a plus and minus,
Mm-hmm.
and you have two lines, wires going over, and there's a light bulb.
Okay.
So just picture that
Old
simple
school
diagram.
science class,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
figure,
make it
you
go,
know,
right?
this is
Got it.
something- Okay. So the plus is that electrons will go from this energy source and they go through and turn on the light and then back to the minus. So that's what's happening. The four aspects are that there's an energy source. Okay. There's something that can produce this energy, wants to produce something.
Okay.
The other aspect is matter, or in this case the light bulb, but something that can consume the energy. Okay, so you have an earth, or in tarot cards it's pentacles, representing earth, things that are can consume energy or use energy. Okay, so from the battery source,
Air can transport energy, but it doesn't use the energy for anything. Whereas
air
whereas
has
a-
molecules. Air is molecules.
yeah, okay.
So
Whereas
you know,
a plant needs energy, it needs a source.
yeah,
Okay.
it can
All right.
grow. It'll grow if it has a source.
Okay.
If it has, can source new molecules, it can duplicate itself.
Yeah.
But it has to want to duplicate itself. A plant does,
Okay.
right? Because
Right.
that's how it works. Cellular mitosis.
That's how we work too, right? Like,
Right.
you know, driven by.
Right. So you have your energy source that matches up with wands in tarot. That's
Okay.
energy. Then you have your
Fire.
fire energy.
Well, can I just
And you
really
have your
quickly,
resistance.
are these universal truths about tarot that wands is fire and
For
Yes.
the most part, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
don't worry if that goes
There,
black like
there
that.
are
the truth
variants,
set.
but there's a baseball deck
Can you
and
hit
there's
the
a
space bar?
a Hello Kitty deck and there's a lot of variants. There's a Halloween deck.
Oh, shoot.
You know.
It's still recording, don't worry.
Okay. So you've got these two aspects that match up with tarot completely. Energy.
Can I
and
just?
then wands.
Okay, I'm sorry. This
Make
is
sure
freaking
it's
me-
working first.
You keep. We're talking, so you keep going while
Okay,
I
all right.
set this.
So while you're going.
Yes.
These are the four elements.
Okay, so those are the two elements. Now the other ones were harder to put into place, but once I did, they fit perfectly. And that is that you notice that there's a wire going from the battery to the light and then back to the battery again.
Right.
Well, the aspect that I picked up on was the energy of flow going through the wire is like literally bumping electrons in a linear fashion down the length of the wire, and it goes to the energy, to the light, and then back. Well, while that's happening, there's a field generated that is energy going perpendicular to the energy forward. There's a force that goes around. So you could think of it almost like a spiral, but there's a field of energy around the wire, and then there's the central part. The central part is matched up with, in tarot, the linear aspect of swords, which it represents communication, different things, but it's linear as opposed to the field around is the obvious spherical part because it goes in all directions. That's a sphere.
Right.
So in tarot, that matched up with cups compared to that linear current going through the wire being swords. So what happens is that when you have to have all four
to complete.
Nothing will
Right.
happen unless all four of that's happening. So the energy source is there, connected to the thing that can consume it, and then a connector occurs so that you have now energy flowing in the form
Right.
of current
Yeah.
with a field around it. Now in tarot, everything is either male or female. So the phallic nature of just the line was a clue.
You don't have to feel like you need to cough when you say phallic. It's
Okay,
fine.
okay, all right. We've all heard that.
You're like,
Not a new
no,
concept.
it's all good. It's all good.
Okay, so in tarot, these four suits are also, two of them are feminine and two are
Yes.
masculine, and they have a phallic nature. Wands and swords are sticks, and cups are round, and so are. So in this field theory, is like
Wait, is this
male
yours, by the
and
way?
female aspect.
Are you like the first person to have kind of connected this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Very
so.
cool. Is this in any of the books, like his theory that he's laid down?
We're working on the book.
Working on the
Working
book on
on
that.
the
Okay,
book.
This
so
is my
the
guess
87th
that
book that you're going to publish is about the. Okay.
tarot physics. It's roughed in. It's not a structured rough in.
Yeah.
She's helping me with the structure.
And so there's a really weird, like, I'm not sure how I feel about tarot, in that I feel like it's I feel like it's an extension. Yeah, like the so I think the physics of it would help me to become.
Well, the history
better
which
with
I
it.
learned from Corrine is that the Italians just had it first as a card game. Cards are very similar to our modern
Scopa.
playing cards with
If
four
any of you
suits.
guys ever played Scopa, Scopa is the same thing. Instead of swords, it's clubs
Okay.
instead,
Yeah,
or
and,
wands.
you
But
know,
it's,
even
yeah,
regular
coins.
playing cards
Yeah,
can
yeah.
function like this, and people do readings with it. But the point is that what they were doing with these picture cards, they ended up, as they were playing these games with them of storytelling, they started to kind of figure out that some of these things were starting to come true. That there was this magical nature about them, that they imagine a story, and then all of a sudden, so and so's neighbor come, just like the cards had said was
Yeah.
going to happen. So they started to consider it a magical oracle kind of thing. But the other thing that I learned during the classes that we both took, and you learn in all Corrine's books and a lot of them, about the structure of the tarot, is a way to kind of represent all the aspects of human nature as they are opposed to each other. Like fire is opposed to water, because when it gets too close, you either have steam or less fire, and they cancel each other out.
Right.
And so a lot of human nature, which again is in all Corrine's books about both astrology and tarot, is that the opposing forces are always at work. They never meet, but they.
Right.
And that reminds me of like in a DNA molecule, they always show the center, and you notice they never show the center actually touching.
Right.
Just
Right.
really close. So there's all these strands that are going around, and they would love to touch, but they just can't. And that's a magical nature about the struggle that we all face. So and all these opposites, pairs of opposites.
And that
everywhere
kind
you
of,
look.
that idea of the attraction, and yet too close, it pulls apart and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
so, it's
and
now
I
how
think-
do we act in
Well,
that
I
model?
I think that there is a cyclic. You've heard it, in a pond, you've got the pebble and it forms these waves, right?
Mhm.
It's like smaller and they get bigger. Life occurs that way too. A little ripple has a repeated effect. If you notice how things feel,
Right.
really the feelings are what kind of recur. And
And
so
the strongest are at the front, but the widest are as you go further away. So the bigger
Exactly.
impact is as you go further away, but the strongest one is the direct one.
Exactly.
So, what role do the other cards play in the circuit? Is the first kind of question I have. What are they called? You guys are all better tarot people
The
than
major
me.
arcana
Yes.
is the greater secrets, the big mysteries of life, and the minor arcana are the four suits with the four elements.
Okay, so the major ones, how do they fit into the model that you're talking about, or are they just kind
The
of?
major are the extra story, you know,
Yeah.
I think the number 22, the total of them is a magic number. But, you know, Corrine knows a lot more about the majors than I do.
But they're not necessarily part of the whole circuit aspect of it.
They are because they're also in the tree of life.
Okay.
And there are 22 connections between the 10 sephira that make up the tree of life. So, you know, because of that, they're magic.
We had a lot of fun coming up with the major arcana cards in the Tarot of Physics.
Okay.
For example, card number 7 is the Chariot, and in most versions of the deck you see the charioteer with his two sphinx pulling the chariot. And we thought, well, how do we represent that in scientific terms? So we came up with the flux capacitor.
As you can see, Marty, what are you doing? Okay, that's my best Doc Brown impersonation.
Well, and who knows if not someday some kind of thought energy or some new energy form that we haven't come up with yet could get us, you know, into time through a way we haven't thought of yet.
Or what is time? You know, in terms of, we think it's always, you know, moving from this time to, you know, go back, kill Hitler, don't hate Hitler, kill Hitler. But when we put intentions out there, when we're thinking, we are traveling back through time, right? We are. It's funny. I'm reading a prayer for own meaning. He's talking about that. It's the I don't know if anyone other than me is a literary dork. Well, you are, right?
Of course I
so
am.
have you read a prayer for own meaning?
Of course, 3
and
times.
how it's right. There you go. I'm listening to it. I've read it like 5 times, but this is the first time I'm listening to it on audiobook. And it's that idea of like the reason why he wrote it that way was to show the convergence of past him, present him, and then the story of Owen underneath. And so it's this idea of time travel is possible because we think about things all the time.
Yeah.
Like we think about our future and we think about things like that. And so we are constantly traveling through time through intentions and things that we put out there that eventually become something.
And quantum
somehow
physics
moved.
talks about how the present can affect the past, and there's some really wacky stuff going on with it.
Yeah, and resonance is another way to think of it, because what you notice, what you resonate with, what you can even perceive, will want to resonate back with you.
Right.
So it's kind of our human nature. We notice all the time. We want to be like, well, we want to be friends, and everybody's.
And that's where we get the whole term like vibe, like the vibe.
Yeah.
So just a funny story for people who have been watching the show, or just people who are fans of me. There are a few out there, I guess. If you've read, what do you call it, Ghosts of the Bridgewater Triangle, we talk about the Samuel West house. And it's one of like the popular things in the Bridgewater Triangle. It's the investigation we went on. So we go there, and there are 4 paranormal investigators who are looking at this house. And it's a crazy house. I'll have to talk to you about it sometime. But the most ridiculous EVPs that you've ever heard in your life. And I'm not even an evidence person, but these are literally voices telling each other to shut up because they're being recorded, right? Like, stop talking, they're taping us. Like, right? This crazy, crazy stuff. I don't even think you've heard those. I'll play it for you. But in the house, not related to ghosts, but related to what you're saying, so show us the basement, and the family's showing us the basement, and the husband's there. And there's a beautiful Ibanez bass in the corner. And so I immediately pick it up, being a bass player. And I start playing a little bit, and then I kind of put it down. And then the next paranormal investigator comes up. And it wasn't until that moment we realized every single person investigating was a bass player.
Wow.
Right? That automatically there was something about those low tones, something about that was resonating with us, that we were all drawn together. I think we're just going to keep dealing. Oh, nice job. Anytime you see it, immediately, that's like your job, to hit it.
Got it.
Very good.
And like, there was something about those frequencies that made us more aware. Maybe it was our approach, which is why we liked working with each other, because we weren't a group or anything like that. But it was just an interesting thing, like the vibrations that you go on.
Yeah. And you know, you can take it to different levels because certain vibrations connect to other vibrations and stuff like that. So, I mean, you guys collectively decided to have a really cool experience where you could get kind of struck with the idea that things can happen without a clear explanation. Because we want to make things make sense through time,
Yeah.
That's what we
Linear.
keep imagining.
Yeah, yeah.
We keep imagining the past, and that leads. But what if time is really not like that at all?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. What if time is more like ice scapes out there in the ocean somewhere, and there's like we're jumping from one time dimension to another, and maybe we're just not even doing what we think we're doing.
And people kind of suffer from that need for linear when it comes to the supernatural and the paranormal, right?
It makes
Because
sense in linear.
except like I always say, you filter it through a story so it can make sense, but in the same way, you try to make your experiences linear so that they make sense, right? So whenever I ask someone like, what was your experience, they always tell it to me like an Aristotle plot diagram. Like the exposition, then a trigger, and then a rising action, you know what I'm saying, a climax, and stuff like that.
Well,
and then when I break them of their narrative, when I break them of their narrative, it really was this happened, and this happened, and this happened. But their mind has put it into some kind of order because they feel like they've seen the end of it. So it's like, okay, well now it's a story. Like, well, it wasn't really a story. It's a cluster of things that happened, but your mind made it linear.
This is what I like about what I was telling you about the four elements, how they have to exist in an electrical circuit. Like energy source, the things that consumes it. Now what's interesting is that the thing that consumes it determines how much energy flows through. So like
It's like a call and response.
Exactly. Like in your outlet, the electricity is not sitting there behind your outlet just waiting for you. It's actually comes at the speed of light exactly to the amount that your hairdryer needs. But if you're just doing a phone charger, it only draws a little bit.
Right.
But it comes at the speed of light to match exactly the amount you need. And there's a spiritual concept in there.
I was gonna say, like, how many? Now, I've had people do tarot with me. I've worked with psychics who do readings and stuff like that. And the thing always is, when you're ready to understand the message, you will.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that same kind of concept. You're getting the juice.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily.
I've always struggled with tarot. I prefer oracle cards, but if I had these, I think I would finally get it because it's lacking. I don't understand how it's working, but I've learned more, which is this. Than I have reading books, Cause
Well, it's part of it is taking it seriously and stuff, but also, like the way one of the physics reasons that I brought up like a wave is that I think when we like see our life in the form of a story in a little way, then that like it goes through time and it like finds other similar like past history things, but it has a way of resonating with certain parts that bring it into reality. So the things that you notice when you're doing a tarot card reading, if you may notice a cat, and that you find yourself talking about as a reader the cat. And this is something I learned from Corrine. I've heard her teach it to hundreds of people, that when you describe the card, the things that you find yourself describing are what that person needs to hear for some reason.
So you, as a reader, are also picking up whether they're a hairdryer, whether they're a
Totally. Yeah.
whether they're an iPhone, right?
Yeah, and when I read tarot cards, it's not this super psychic mystical experience. I mean, it kind of is, of course, but I also look at tarot as a storytelling device, and it's a way to help people see their story, understand their story, and also explain their story to me. Because I can see something in the card and say,
Were you doing a reading on me this whole time?
No.
Okay, all right.
Yes. I was pulling out some of the sound cards that relate to music in the Tarot of Physics. We have the propagation card, which describes how sound waves travel through matter, space, and time. And this corresponds to the Empress card, which is all about giving birth to new creations and new generations of understanding.
So, just so we can keep it like on track with like promoting you guys, you do both your lessons and sell your cards here.
Here at the shop.
So at the Haunted Antique Shop.
Right.
Haunted Antique Store.
Haunted Antique Shop.
Haunted Antique Shop, sorry.
Yeah.
Feel free to slap me every time I get that wrong. Not only can you get these cards, but you can also come for a reading, but also come for classes.
Correct.
So I've always had this. My thing with tarot has always been, I feel like it's an extension of a psychic, right? Would you, with this, consider yourself a psychic?
Yes.
You can only say yes or no. Okay, good, yes. All right. Whereas the person is just using the card to connect you to something that they're seeing psychically. Like the card is not as important as like what they're getting from the card. Does that make sense? Like,
What I
like
like
in
about
other words, it's more of a you thing. Have you seen what's the movie with Kate Blanchett and Keanu Reeves? Is The Others? It's not The Others. Where she's like they're down the bayou and she's got the cards and they're like water signs and you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen it.
It's a great movie. You
I
should see
watch
it.
Good
It
Halloween
totally
movie.
Billy Bob Thornton like wrote and directed
Yeah.
it, and it's the most like subtle paranormal movie that really is just unnerving.
Okay.
But in that, she just has a series of cards that are all either water symbols and they're just lines,
Oh,
and she uses them as a way to connect with the person,
sure.
and then she sees things.
Yeah, they're a tool.
But are you? But I always get because everyone says like, oh, that one fell out, so you got to use that one. And is my energy impacting these tarot cards as much as you as
Yes.
the reader?
Yep, and that's the quantum physics of it.
Okay, can you get into that a little bit? Don't worry, we'll have plenty of time to talk about haunted objects too.
Well,
This is-
you know, well,
we
I-
might break this into 2 episodes. We might just be
Nine.
like the tarot. What'd you say?
Well, oddly
Nine.
enough,
Oh,
even
you're
though
not-
you know,
you're
it's,
nine.
even though I reduced this to these black and white drawings, it
First of all, they're beautiful cards. We're gonna take pictures of them and post
Do
them
you have
up on
these for
social
sale
media.
now,
as
or
well.
these are still work in progress?
We have a couple decks left for sale, and we desperately need to do the book and reprint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think you just made a sale. By the way. I
Yeah.
think that's what you meant by that.
cool.
All right, continue what you were saying. Sorry.
So yeah,
You're gonna spend a
Quantum
fortune
physics.
here, by the way.
okay.
So his energy plugs into the psychic's energy or the tarot reader's
Right,
energy,
right.
and it's a loop. It's
Right.
I guess
a-
it just seems
Well,
so.
okay,
It seems
okay,
so.
go-
It seems so
back to
random
the
to me, tarot.
vibration.
Like
Go-
they're just the cards. They're just the shuffle.
Okay,
like,
go back to the vibration and then go back to that idea that there's something in, like Corrine had picked the recorder card there too, that, you know, the tape recorder, you know how the tape would go past this head that would read?
Yeah.
So think of electromagnetic energy as holding information or patterns.
Right.
And even so, the water in our body is actually capable of holding like memory, like a memory stick on your computer. The molecule arrangement of water can actually hold memory of things. So what is happening is that you're not touching. If you touch, then it's like nothing will move. Like water freezes when it gets hot, solid. But if there's movement, and you can get that electromagnetic energy flowing past something, then there's a resonance because two things are vibrating to each other.
okay.
So when we hear a sound, remember sound is these waves. One way to look at sound is that we only hear the part that is repeated enough in our experience, then that becomes reality to us.
Do we? I don't know whether either of you guys can answer this question. Do we pick up subconsciously those frequencies that we can't, that aren't repeated?
Well,
Stuff like
that would be the psychic stuff.
that? Okay.
Right.
All right. You're like.
The stuff that's
Yeah.
beyond the explanation of what our senses can pick up, but a flash will appear. So different people have it in different ways.
It's like when you try to become conscious of the things you're doing them, instead of doing them, then you realize you become more aware of other things around you that you didn't notice before.
Like,
instead of just going through the routine, like
Cognitive
you move
bias
your hand,
and like the
thinking
the,
about it and
the
watching
punch
it.
buggy blue car theory,
Yes.
is that what you're saying? Or hashtag follow the signs, like
Right.
once you start.
Yeah. The magical thing about tarot for me is that it does encompass every possible human experience.
What do you mean?
If you can experience something in life, there's a corresponding card somewhere in the tarot deck.
Okay.
Some people say the tarot is like a cosmic filing cabinet. And it's just structured in such a way that you can see big mysteries, you can see milestones in life, and you can see everyday people, everyday events,
So in
everyday
that
experiences.
in that deck of cards, is that all of me? And
Yes.
and cards at a certain time. Do you get what I'm saying? Like metaphysically, like from above, is that all of me? And just at certain times, certain cards are relevant.
Yeah.
At certain times, certain
And
cards
Carl
aren't relevant.
Jung-
Or
You know the
Yes.
psychologist
Yeah.
Carl Jung, he coined the phrase synchronicity,
Yes.
which means meaningful coincidence. And so one reason I think tarot works is the concept of synchronicity. The cards you pull will have a meaningful coincidence with whatever happens to be going on with your
And
life.
it's not just cognitive bias, like, you know what I'm saying, like in terms of, oh, like that card is relevant. So, for example, and I'm not minimizing like what you experienced.
What's that?
Oh, or even just like your daughter kept asking me, "What's your favorite animal? What's your favorite animal? What's your favorite animal?" And then like it was a bear,
Right.
and I always say bear, and then you happened to pull a bear card.
Yes.
And then you
yeah.
pulled a beetle card, and then like bees were all over the place.
Yeah, I was
and,
attacked by a beetle.
right,
Like-
right. And so, is it just one of those things where it's like, well, you know what? If you think back, like all the time,
I mean, yeah, I pull
beetles
cards
are
all the time.
The
I
roaches, if you're in my house, but still, like
It's
those
a
kinds of
synchronicity.
things.
I think he even has one of those dreams where that's what had happened. It was something with a beetle, wasn't it? And that when he started giving the term synchronicity, it was a patient of
Oh,
his
like
that was
young-
having a dream. Of,
I have. Whoa, see, we're talking about young. I said beetle randomly, and it was a beetle that was his, that inspired
his
it.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's you know, I have a hard time. So, and I'm not in a not confrontational way, in like a teach me please kind of way of like, yeah, but this seems. Is it okay if I touch them? This seems like these cards will always be in this order till I put them in this order. Like, what about my energy? Literally made me like something in the universe made me cut it here instead of here. Like, is that the basis of like what? You know what I'm saying? Because
Well,
for me, tarot's always been a really good discussion with whoever's doing the tarot
Yeah.
deck, and it's usually a hot girl. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh yeah, you can do my cards and stuff like that, and you're more focused on like the storytelling aspect of it
Mhm.
than the idea of like no, like I mean, it just
Have you
seems
ever
so
been
random to me.
Have you ever been to one of those movies that you can choose the ending? You know,
No.
you can-
I've heard
Well,
of
I
it.
read the
Books,
books
yeah,
definitely,
books, okay,
but there
books.
was. Do you guys remember for a
Turn to
while there
different
were
page.
you might actually be you might have been like younger when it came out, but there actually were movies where you
Right.
hit a button. It was like experimental and lasted like 6
Right.
months. Movies were
Well,
the two, but
and-
definitely the choose your own adventure books.
And as a kid,
I
I'm
remember.
sure you did, like the flip book, and you knew, how to. Watch
No,
a
I
guy.
never cheated.
Or opening a book
No,
up
the
to a
book where you
certain
saw the little
page and
cartoon
looking for
guy.
a
The
message.
guy would be like.
Oh,
Like
okay, yeah.
running
I thought you meant I was
or
cheating. I thought you meant I was
No, no.
cheating on my choose your own adventure. I'm like,
And like in my age, we did it with real
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cards. You might have seen it on TV.
no, we have it, and of course, being a middle school teacher, we have plenty of the Captain Underpants books do that as well, and you flip
Sure.
it really quick and for the story
Yeah.
and stuff. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Well, imagine that every moment is a different frame in a movie of your life.
Okay.
And so that when you shuffle the cards and then do this, I've had like 100,000 frames that I could have had a different insertion of a different order of cards.
Right.
So maybe the reality is flying by so fast that anything is possible.
Yeah.
It, but I think, to me, it reminds me of the more ancient philosophies about stepping back and going into a moment, so being in the now. So if you put all your energy at wanting anything to be anything in particular, and you come back to the now, then from that point, there's so much more potential because you're not blocking all the whole tarot deck of 78
Right.
cards of things that could be happening to you is usually where our minds have gotten to.
Like
If
the
you just pull
fractal,
back-
like focusing
yes,
on the one
yeah.
thing.
So that's how the fractal is how the cards represent everything, because it's from every perspective has its equal and opposite perspective. So all you're doing is you're choosing how much do I want to cause this dichotomy between fire
I'm
and
totally
water.
listening. We'll lean over so we can see if we've got any comments that are kind of coming in. About the. I don't even know. You guys can keep talking if you don't mind my.
But
button
yeah,
right here.
just if you think cosmically or kind of in astrology or
Yeah.
in the tarot, energy and having its equal and opposite is just universal. It's throughout the universe that for every energy there's something pulling it, and if there's something pulling it, there's something opposing it in that direction, and change. Because that's what it really comes down to is going from a still static moment to change. So everybody has their own option of changing in every direction all the time. And the tarot cards are really just like a you could think of them as being inside a 78 faceted prism that's, together, it sees everything if you just look at
People have actually projected all the 78 cards onto what's called the cube of space,
Okay.
which is then overlaid on the tree of life. And this is like really trippy stuff that I don't get into too much in the course of a normal tarot reading.
He's like, I like the trippy stuff. I like the trippy stuff. I wonder what would then happen if you put that against, like, the Cabal.
What a tree life.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the same thing with Tree of Life?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
all
the
matches.
small thing?
Yeah.
Kabbalistic thought.
As a do you read as well?
Mm,
Do you read?
yeah.
As readers, because you read too, you're learning to.
Yeah, I
Like
do.
that.
I do mainly Oracle, but yeah, I have.
Do
yeah.
you like to pull? Do you like them to pull? Or is it one of those moments where it's like, right now I feel like you need to do it right now?
Totally depends on my mood.
On your mood.
On my mood. And
Okay.
also how much time we have to spend.
Okay, what do you mean by
Yeah.
that?
Well, if somebody just wants a one card reading for a yes or no question, then, I might just pull the top card off the deck, or I might fan out the cards and say pull one, and that'll be the answer.
And
But it's-
sometimes you're at an
it's-
event where people are literally kind of lined up, and you're doing, you want to keep it quick with each
Right.
person.
So then I just do the top card.
Yeah. So then you just.
The readings that you do here, people have to call, and they
No, I do walk-ins.
you do walk-ins as
Yeah.
well. Okay, so anyone. By the way, we are in the haunted Ocala, right? We are in like a place where I feel I don't know that the energy's off.
Yeah,
now
it's a
you've heard
mystical
my-
place.
Yeah, like there's something weird, and I always take it back to the first time I was here in Astor, and the sound waves and the light waves were just doing weird things, right? And I said, okay, one, and this is the thing I always have, my Gemini duality, attraction, repulsion, the folklore of things, and then like the physics of things, or like that there is something weird to this place. Were you guys drawn here to
One of the strange
to Deland?
things.
We're in
is all
Deland,
of
by the way. The shop is in
coincidences.
Deland.
All of the coincidences and the way things are named alone is pretty foul.
Because we moved here without knowing much about Deland. We'd been renting down in Boca Raton, and we didn't really love it there. It's a lot of traffic, it's a lot of heat. And
And you guys are too young for Boca Raton, right?
we're much too young.
Yeah.
So we were looking for a place, and Deland popped up on, just a Google search of nice small towns in Florida. And we came up and really loved it because it's a beautiful little town. And then we bought our house, which happens to be across the street from Highland Park, which is where we lived when we first got married.
Yeah, the name of the place
Okay.
in St. Paul, Minnesota, where we met and lived
Highland
together
Park.
for a while, was called Highland Park. And after we moved to this place, we realized it's also called Highland Park.
And the street next to us is Walt's, and we both had grandpas named Walt.
Yep.
So a lot of name game things going
A
on.
lot of name game
We lived for
things.
10 years in Minneapolis on Woodlawn Boulevard. The main street through Deland is called Woodland Boulevard.
Yeah.
It's taken us 5
It's
years
only
to
one
get
of
them
two boulevards.
not mixed up.
Yeah, we said Woodlawn Boulevard.
Wait, what does Minnesota mean? Like the word
Um,
Minnesota?
I have no idea.
It's lots of lakes
I
or
don't
something
know.
like
Yeah, I
Yeah, I was
think
gonna
so. Something
say,
with
like,
lakes.
there's
yeah.
your water
It's
and your earth
Lanafton
right there,
does
right?
lakes,
Like,
yeah.
it's Deland is.
We only
did you-
stopped in for 20 years. We didn't really.
Now, how long have you guys been in Deland?
5 years.
For 5 years. And has the shop been here for that whole time?
No, we've had
Or-
shop almost 4 years, I believe.
4 years. Do you feel like you were meant to come to Deland? Like there was something about the Ocala that was calling you?
Absolutely.
Because there are other places you could have been. Boca's a nicer place. I don't think, now we were driving here and we were actually commenting on the idea of like Astor and Deland as sister cities or sister towns. They're completely opposite, right? Like Astor doesn't have the same feel of Deland. Were you there when the guy was yelling at me about Deland is not the beginning of Volusia County?
Mm-mm.
That was not the show that you
No.
were at. Yeah, you were. Yeah, it was the one
Well,
that
you
I
were
did.
saying you were saying that Deltona is not the same.
No,
as
I
Deland.
was saying that when you come over the bridge, you're in
Oh,
Deland,
yeah,
and he
that
was
old
like,
man.
"That's Volusia." Was that guy great? God, I felt like it was like, it was like like my high school English teacher telling me I was wrong with everything. But it was good though because he was bringing up good points, right?
And he was right.
But have you spent time in Astor?
No.
Astor is rural. I describe. You don't see. It's rural. You don't see shops, and you don't see. I mean, I remember. Now they talk big because there's a Dollar General. Like the first time we went there wasn't a Dollar General.
It
And
got
they're like,
fancy.
we've got a Dollar General now. You guys have shops all over the place. It's quaint, and it's like you could. So we were talking about that. We were talking about. You said I could live in Deland. She's like, I can live in Deland. Like, look at through it.
I've never
There are
felt
other places
as home in Deland. I mean, to me, Deland is like finally finding
It's
my
like
place.
St. Augustine. It's different. Something's different. Like it's cute.
Yeah, I guess my point is that there are places all around Florida. Not being a fan of Florida, right? There are places all around Florida that aesthetically are very much like Deland, right? On the West Coast, once you get past like where I am, and you have these towns like Arcadia or even Sebring, which is right there, which is closer to the East Coast a little bit. But you came to Deland,
Right.
and Deland's got this kind of like pull to it, And I think that more than Freetown, was the topic of the subject of one of my books, it doesn't have the repulsion, right?
Well,
Like it's got the attraction, and then it's got a weirdness to it that sometimes freaks people out.
Yeah, because there's so many haunted places here.
Because there's so many haunted
Casadega,
places.
It's not far.
Casadega is like 5 miles
That's
away.
why I learned about Deland.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh,
near, like near
yeah, 'cause you said
Daytona.
that in the
They're like,
car
no, near Deland. I'm
You
like,
saw
oh,
that in the
it's-
car too, and I was like, I don't.
So you
Is
wonder if there's
Casadega
like
that
ley
close? I guess
lines.
it was
Yes,
like,
it
is
is.
Well, we're pretty close to the 30th.
Parallel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're pretty close to that.
And that's got all that attached to it. Have you ever felt that the Ocala or the juice from that is influencing these cards? Before we get on to haunted objects and the antique aspect of things, I just
Well,
kind of want to.
I definitely think that all of the, like the St. Johns River and I want to say fountains, but that's not the right word.
Springs.
Springs,
Yeah.
yes.
The springs, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely imbue this
Yeah.
area with a lot of magic.
And that magic translates to the cards.
And to this place, because, I mean, this place reminds me of, like, my great-grandmother's house. It's very, very similar.
It's
Just got that nice
it
maternal
reminds me
energy.
of my grandmother as well. Like,
Yeah.
other than this room, which I felt, as soon as I came into here, I felt like a complete surge. The first time when you guys were giving me the tour. Do you feel, like, do you get different, do you do readings on yourself? And if so, do you get different readings off of yourself depending on, like, what room you're in? Do you feel like there's, like, a different vibe in each of these?
When I need a reading, I ask him for it. Because, when you read for yourself, you only see what you want to see.
Exactly.
Or else I'll shuffle again and get the same cards.
Wait,
and
when
get
you
angry
read
at the
when you
death.
read for her, do you give her what you want her to see? Is that the
Well,
same kind of thing, or are you
it's
more
like-
open and
Well,
vice
it's
versa?
a conversation between a husband and wife. But that's the first thing it is, no
Yeah.
matter what.
And
But but I mean, I try to be as honest about the cards as I would be for myself, which
Yeah.
You read for yourself.
yeah, and I do.
Well, I would
other things
imagine
for myself.
pulling for your, because I think you even said that too, like pulling for your boyfriend, or pulling for your girlfriend, or pulling for your husband, wife.
Well, you can do that with
It's-
that
there's
loves me not until you get the one you want.
Right.
Right. That there's something that's not quite, and it's not even necessarily that you don't want to say the thing because it came out, as much as it's interfering with those wires, that circuit that you're talking about, that energy.
Yeah. Well, and one of the points about that energy circuit is that the more you draw, the more current, the more energy you're drawing in. So, and I believe that we do that with our emotions. So when a situation occurs, if we're like, that's
Yeah.
terrible, I'm late, it's awful, you actually imbue it with that energy, because that's your PowerPoint that you have right at that moment. It's how you're going to feel.
Right.
And so if you make it can be dangerous, because that can distract you and run into a tree or something. So it's best to relax and just let.
That's the thing that we can't do, right? It's like I can come at it with passion and joy. I can come at it with anger and rage, but it's the like.
But if
putting
you,
yourself at a quiet place, which is a hard
I
thing.
think if you pull back, and you know, tarot cards and other things help us reflect on ourselves in different ways. It's part of what they do. But if you pull back and just wait and give yourself that moment to figure out, what do I even want? Ask yourself that question before you start reacting.
Right.
You know, and I found the more I can hold back, it's almost like holding back the bow. Just right.
Yeah.
And when I release, it's
And it's the difference between tension and productive tension.
Yeah.
When you're taking that moment of pause in that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Do you?
We got off the topic of ghosts.
Oh my word!
I
We'll totally
I
get.
want you to lean into the camera more.
Oh,
No,
okay.
he's just looking for a little love, and that's okay. Just so you know, we might even just split up into 2 episodes, like one
Yeah.
just about the tarot, stuff,
Tarot,
one
and
other.
yeah, that makes
Um,
perfect sense.
Do you? Is there? And any of you guys can say this to me. Have you been reading, or do you want to read? And you say to the person who you are reading, you're asking the wrong question. Like, do you ever feel that kind of thing, or you're like,
They usually
or you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, hey, you paid, I'm gonna do what you want me to do, but like, do you ever get that where you're
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you're
a
asking
lot
the
of
wrong
times
question,
the
or do you try to
cards-
get the real
No,
question in there, like
a lot of
slip it in
times
there
the
for
cards
them?
will be completely different from the question they ask. They might ask about a new job, for example, and all the cards come out love, 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 and I'll be like, the cards are not
Yeah.
saying that your job is your priority right now. Right now, it's your marriage, it's your relationship.
And do you do psychic stuff without the cards?
No.
No. Okay. Because I was gonna ask you, is it the same thing if someone wants to talk to their uncle and you're like,
I do
your
that
grandmother's coming through. Stop. Get off the uncle.
I
listen
do
to the grandmother.
mediumship with the cards.
Yeah, you do
Yeah.
with the cards. You
With the
actually
cards,
use them,
yes.
and the cards are saying something.
She said I only want to have the cards.
I only want to have
Yeah.
my psychic.
She doesn't want to
channel
get
open.
Uncle
And that's
Joe telling her
yeah,
stuff
that's
all
a
the
that's a
time. She
really
said,
good,
That's
you know,
good.
Like,
because
that's
so
the-
many people, and it's okay. So I can tell the story because I know he's not listening because he won't listen to the show. Like one of my best friends of all time, his wife might be listening. I call him Vitamin C Dan. That's what my kids call him, because he stole my parents' vitamin C once. Whatever. He's Vitamin C Dan, and he blocks everything out because he feels if he opens up at all, it's going to be a flood that he can't handle. Right? And so he won't even listen to my show. He's like, I love you. I've never listened to your show. I won't listen to your show. I'll share it. I'll support you and all stuff like that, but I can't listen to your show. And you hear that so much from people who are new at this, but I've never heard that kind of thing. Like, you know me. I can only have this power when I am doing this. Do you ever feel then that like you're drawn to the cards? Like something is pushing you to the card because they're like, hello, I want to talk. Like they're knocking, and the way that they're knocking is drawing you to the.
Like
or,
if I know I have a mediumship appointment scheduled, I will start to feel them in my house while I'm brushing my teeth and fixing my hair, and I'll be like, guys, this is not the time or place.
But wait a minute, but you're in a haunted antique shop. Do your cards appear or like fall on your head or something like that? Like, do your cards, when they're like, no, it's time for us to talk, whether you want to or not, do the cards do things within? Because we're going to talk about all the weird things that are here and that have happened to you. But do the cards call to you?
The story of the
force
spirit keys would
themselves?
actually illustrate it better, I think.
You want to tell that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay, so.
Wait, can you tell it together? Is
Sure.
that okay?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so for a long time, I had collected these antique skeleton keys, and I didn't know what I was going to do with them. And I carried them around for 20 years. I had them in a little Ziploc bag. And then I went to a writer's retreat up in Virginia where we all did paranormal writing. And the other writers there said, the best pendulums are made with vintage or antique skeleton keys. I was like, yay, I have
This
a
is the
bunch
story
at
I was telling you
home.
about.
And so I went home and I was telling him about it, and I pulled the little Ziploc baggie out of my closet, and they were on my nightstand, and he was like, yeah, that sounds really great, whatever. And so that night we fell asleep, and sound asleep. But at like 3 a.m, we both sat up in bed at the same time. And I said, oh my God, I was having the weirdest dream. I was like in this old hotel, Shining or something, and I was walking down this long corridor, and I was using these keys to open out doors in the hallway.
And I was having the same dream.
Wow, that's crazy. The
Yeah.
same one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Now was
both-
she in yours,
we
and you
both
were,
were.
you both were
we,
solo,
we were both in. Yeah, we were both doing the unlocking.
but together.
But no,
like, was she
no.
in your dream or no?
No,
Okay.
I
So
was
you were
alone.
both doing the same
I was
thing,
just
but in different.
using, yeah.
That's
and-
even crazy.
And then
Yeah.
he came up with the name Spirit Keys, which is what
Yeah.
we advertise them as now.
So yeah. So
Which you
hold
get at
them
the
up.
front of the store.
Right.
When
and handmade by Corrine, most of them.
Yeah.
But so what you do is you hold it and then you try to hold it still, and even brace your elbow against your
But watch
body.
my
hat.
Watch out for somebody's hat.
Okay.
You don't want to bump it.
I'm not messing with the hat.
All right, so you hold it there, and then you when you think you have it still, say "Show me yes," and then you can repeat it and say "Show me yes," and you can kind of feel
Can I
your
put my
intent.
elbow down now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So,
do you want to go grab us one? They're by the front desk.
Okay.
Grab the prettiest one.
They're called spirit keys on the right hand side.
Yeah, and you had told me about that last week, and I was like, I never heard of using them as a pendulum.
And
You
to
know what I'm
talk to
saying?
ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, my dad, we found out last year, my dad, who had passed away about 3 years ago now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. He
Oh, I'm sorry.
he really was coming through to answer questions. He helped a young boy to have a conversation with his grandmother.
Oh, really?
Check out.
Yeah. And so, yeah, there's some really cool stuff. But so you can start with just saying, "Show me yes" and "Show me no." And you can do the same thing with
So same thing you would with like divining rods or
Pendulum.
yeah.
yeah.
So show me yes, show me no. Get the tag off.
Yeah, we don't want to get filthy lucre involved. There you go.
Okay. So this is no longer, this is love and money and the key to unlock. So you hold it still. And as still as you can. Say if there's a spirit here, can you show us yes? There's a spirit here, can you show us yes?
It's going side to side for yes.
Yep. So
And it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And even in different circumstances, like in this way, I can see I'm kind of at an angle, so it's gonna go that
Right.
way for yes. And then the thing is I was trying not to move it, and I don't think I did. But one of the good tests is if you say, okay, now stop. Stop, please. Stop. Stop, please. And then when you're ready, show us no.
You have to be ready.
It
was ready
going
itself.
Yeah.
So if you can't see,
This-
it was
this
going
might
side
be
to
my
side. Now it's
dad.
going back and forth this way.
Dad, is this you? Did you come for these people? Yeah, he likes to come.
So you could say you were moving it, but you couldn't stop it and make it go another
Yeah,
direction.
it would.
Unless he's got math
And that-
skills.
You
well,
know what?
yeah.
I was actually never very good at sports. I mean, I could not.
Really, I thought you said you were computers and
Yeah,
circuits
I
and
was
stuff like
the
that.
nerd.
No,
Physics.
Oddly enough,
I learned from my dad how to be a nerd.
Yeah.
But he likes to come in during these, and so. But there's a moment, and like with a lot of things that, as if you're ghost hunting or doing things, there's that moment where you're like, and you kind of want to run, but the more you can get through that moment,
Yeah.
get past the spook, and get so that you allow it to be something amazing that happened. I think that I've increased the number of things that happen that are kind of spectacular by allowing and not having my body do that reaction and practicing.
And this is something you and I talked about briefly when I was here last week, is the idea of
Can I see it?
Yeah.
the paranormal, the spirits tend to go to places where people are paying attention.
Absolutely. They come when
And
they're
so it's
called.
the same kind of thing of like, if they realize that you are in a place where you can receive, okay, well now you can be talked to. Or if we're in a haunted place or a
Yeah.
place where objects are kind of
Right.
valued for their ability to connect spirits with the living, they're gonna find their way there, right? Like,
And I think that's
I wouldn't haunt an old abandoned building. I'm haunting the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah.
haunting the library that's famous for this. Or
I think it's both the place. It's a place that they're comfortable with because they recognize the architecture, they recognize the antiques we have, but it's also that the people who come in are open to the experience and the people are welcoming
yeah,
of ghostly interactions.
And we, we allow that. We
You're
as-
really good at that because you
Yeah.
are better than I am at remembering to say, is it okay if something magical happens? I usually kind of just dive right in. I'm like,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
well, let's go. But
No, I'm
you,
the
Well,
same
I,
way.
I like to
you
set
do
the
the
intent
atmosphere,
and say,
yeah.
and I, in a way, I visualize like a vortex where, I mean, it could reach far and wide, but of knowing this, that here you can talk about your ghost stories, and then, she's actually been collecting them, and she's going to start producing them, as a lot of people have given us ghost stories because they felt like this was a safe place to
It's a
talk
safe place to
about
talk, right?
it. Yeah.
It's the famous doctor, the doctor story of, you do the whole examination and then the doctor's waiting for oh, wait a minute, by the way, as they're leaving, right? That same thing, it's the person that's standing around at the end of an event or something like that, or the
Yeah.
person who, you're like,
does this look normal to you?
you're safe here. And they're just waiting for that, in of this is a
Well,
safe
yeah.
place to tell that story.
Right?
So I've been doing these events since it's October, and there was like a week where I did 3 different libraries where all 3 of the libraries, the patrons said, "You were great, blah blah blah." We were thinking that it was just someplace we could come tell our own ghost stories, and the librarians were all like, "That sounds like a good thing. Can you come in and moderate that?" Because people have all these stories.
Yes.
And they want to tell the stories, but who are you going to tell? And what we don't realize is we think it's like a 20-80, like only 20 people are weirdos like us that like these ghost stories and believe them
Mm-hmm.
and are open, and 80% are not. But I think it's more 80% really believe it. They just don't think that they can tell the story.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
don't know that.
Yeah. I agree.
If
And
we
a lot
could,
of
if we
people
could wear
will
like a
say-
patch or something like that of like
A tattoo.
yeah.
A lot of people will say, well, I don't believe in ghosts, except I did see my grandfather walk
Ex-
through the
yeah,
wall.
exactly. Except it's always it. So I always tell the story of when I first came here to Florida and I was teaching at this Episcopal school, and the head of whatever their version of the PTO is came into my class and said, "I heard you're telling the kids how to worship Satan," and I'm like, "Well, what?" like what? And she said, "Oh, well, I just heard you talking about ghosts and stuff like that." No. She's like, "That's stupid. That's against our no, you shouldn't do any of that stuff. This is not the place for that." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm more telling the folklore and stuff like that." And then about a week later, she came. She's like, "I have these photographs that I don't quite understand." I'm like, "Really? Okay, come over here. Let me see them." And I actually put it there. Like, I got the ultimate revenge because I put them in one of my books. You know what I'm saying? So, but it is that I think more people are into it, and of course, every year they come out with those polls that say how many people believe in ghosts and how many and people and they always get published, they always get publicity, they always get picked up by AP no matter who's doing it, and it's the same thing over and over again.
It is.
People believe in this stuff, they just don't think that people will take them seriously if they say it.
And I think too, ghost stories are so good for so many reasons, including that they bring us closer to other people. It's a good way to be vulnerable without being too vulnerable, because you can always say, well, it's a story,
Yeah.
Right.
or it's a strange experience.
Mm-hmm.
But lately I've noticed more and more people are using ghost tours and haunted tours and experiences like this to understand history.
Right. We say, come for the ghost, stay for the history.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a good way to connect with our past.
And you know what I found in doing that? The audiences, sometimes they'll say, well, that wasn't that scary.
Right.
But they never say that was too much history. Right? Like, they
You're
might
right.
say, and they never seem to be. Now, obviously, the ones that don't like the talks or don't like the books might not be the ones who are going to connect with you afterwards or after they read the book. You know what I'm saying? they'll just go on and correct my grammar on Amazon. But I've never had anyone say, you have too much history in here.
No.
Some have said, oh, you need to have more. Like Deanna is famous for saying, honor the haunting. Like, tell the story. Tell the story of the haunting. That's what they want. But also, that history, I've never heard it rejected before. And the two things seem to go, like, hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know? Let's talk
It's,
about... okay.
They're connected with, it's a study of feelings. When you go back and then feelings goes back into that whole vibe thing. So.
And it's all about not feeling alone, not feeling like you're the only
Part
one
of
that
something
something
bigger.
weird has
Mhm.
happened.
Well, like if I was going to say to you, so Danny, let's talk about your dad, right? Like, who's this guy? Like, or you just tell me, but if it's a story about spirituality, now you can talk about it. Now you can communicate those feelings that you have, and so many times it's like that. Once again, to talk about vitamin C, Dan, we were the conversation we were having was I was like, maybe dude, you got to start dealing with some stuff because his mom died when we were in high school and we were all very close, and it was the first time 30 years later that I told him, like, your mom came to me, right? And so we couldn't necessarily have a conversation where we were two guys talking about our feelings about this thing that happened 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But I could say, your mom told me to look out for you. Let me tell you this story. And was able to tell him. So we were able to communicate emotions, like you were saying, emotions as well as history with
Yeah.
him.
Right.
Yeah, even just seeing someone, and I mean, it happens in dreams. My dad came to me in a dream, but he was actually a 10-year-old boy. We were both like 10-year-old boys jumping across creeks and stuff. And,
Yeah.
But as we were doing it, he was like telling me all this great stuff that's going to happen to me. I woke up, I couldn't remember any of it, but I could remember how excited
That
he was
feeling.
for me.
Yeah.
And we were both just like these kids jumping around in the creek.
And you can't necessarily just do that on an emotional level, right?
Right, and the weird thing is I knew it was my dad. Even
Yeah,
though
that's.
as a kid-
Have you seen pictures of him before or anything like that, or?
yeah.
Yeah,
but-
because
But it was more like he felt like him.
Yeah. One last thing on the tarot, I'd love to get your idea on this. I'm sorry because it was rolling around in my head. Is there anything having to do with the supernatural, paranormal, that molds to people more than the tarot? Right? Like there seems to be a deck for every kind of person. There's an animal deck. There's a Native American
There's
deck.
so
There's the
many
Crowley
thousands
deck.
of
Golden
There's
Girls.
there's a
Golden
gold.
Girls.
Wait, is there a Golden Girls
There's
deck?
David
Yes.
Bowie too. There's a bunch of them.
Why is that? Why is it? I guess.
I think because they
We're
can all be
always-
related to the same story.
Well, I was
like
gonna
you
say,
said, it's a story.
is the tarot such a snapshot of like the unified theory of the universe, whether it's quantum physics or whether it's like our connection to other people, all stuff like that? Is it so representative that it can just mold on
Yes.
top of whatever we like?
Yeah,
It
if
is
you-
the skeleton, and you can put any skin on it that you want.
And the
Yeah.
skeleton key.
What's your favorite deck? And what's your favorite deck?
My favorite deck I own about 600 decks.
Shut up. Are they all here?
No.
Okay, I was gonna have you take them out one by one. I'm just kidding. All right.
But yeah, my favorite deck is the standard Rider-Waite-Smith deck that everybody uses because I love the artwork. I love that it's a century old. I love that it's the de facto standard. And I love that the artist who drew it, Pamela Coleman Smith, was actually named Corrine, like me.
Well, see, that's
Well,
awesome.
She was one of those rare female juniors. Her mom was Corrine too. And so she went by her middle name, Pamela.
Other than the Gilmore Girls, which have 3 Loreleis, just throwing it out there. Sorry, I gotta make one reference to Gilmore Girls every episode. So, and how about you? Is this your favorite one or?
Well,
Yes.
I think it is because to me, as I think about human experience, I think for a lot of my life I had to interpret it in some kind of more structured framework.
Yeah.
That to me, it's like I was just explaining to my work partner during that tarot conference after
Another
10
guy.
years.
This is
yeah.
more of a guy's deck.
Yeah, yeah.
It's more
and I was like,
scientific.
Yeah.
if I, electrical circuit, I'm like every aspect. And he was like, well, you should do a deck.
And the deck, you can get there's a website that explains it that needs to be worked on a little bit more?
Yeah, it needs to be
Yeah.
worked on.
And then can you do a virtual poll on it as well, or?
No.
Yeah,
Or
well,
not.
well, I mean,
No, not on- not online.
No, okay, no,
you
okay.
can't, no.
Say the
If
name of the
on-
website again.
No,
If
so
only we
people
knew
can
a
get
good
it.
programmer who could set something like that.
Yeah, I mean.
I'm like, come on, man! I had like
definitely
25 years ago. I had a
It's
computer
like,
program.
it's like
that
the
pulled-
cobbler's children have no shoes, right?
Yeah.
Say the name of the website again so people can get
Tarot
that.
of Physics.
Tarotofphysics.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
.com, yeah.
Okay.
I was kind of surprised it was available because when I was younger in the 70s, there was a famous book kind of named The Tao of Physics.
TAO.
Oh, was there?
TAO
Yeah.
of Physics. And that was a very
I mean, I know the Tao of Pooh,
Yeah.
and like that series of books, but I've never heard of the Tao of
Yeah,
Physics.
yeah, the Tao of Physics was
Do you have it?
that was
Is that on the library